They say mornings usually start quietly before deciding to collapse into absolute chaos. And on the day I, a fully grown man with misplaced confidence, attempted to cook a real breakfast for the first time in months, I woke up feeling like nothing could possibly go wrong. I stood in the kitchen stretching my shoulders like an athlete preparing for competition, the sunlight hitting the counter as if trying to hype me up for greatness. Even the eggs on the counter seemed to sit there agreeing with my optimism. I took a steady breath, rolled up the sleeves of my t-shirt, and imagined myself as the competent adult I believed I could be, completely unaware of the disaster waiting behind every move. I grabbed my phone to follow a recipe video, trying to look confident even though no one was watching. Milo, my dog, trotted into the kitchen with the energy of someone who already knew I was in over my head. He glanced between me and the ingredients with that silent judgment dogs have mastered better than humans. I reassured him by patting his head and telling him, in the confident tone of a man lying to himself, that I got this. The pan began to heat, sizzling in a way that sounded both promising and threatening. Milo sat by my feet like a skeptical supervisor while I cracked the first egg with theatrical determination. The egg exploded sideways like it had personal issues with me, splattering across the stove instead of landing in the pan where it belonged. I froze midair, staring at the catastrophe while Milo leaned closer with wide eyes, looking exactly like someone watching a slow-motion train wreck. I panicked, reached for a paper towel, and in the process knocked over the salt container. It spun like a fidget toy possessed, flew off the counter, and burst into a puff of white dust on the floor. I stood there motionless, a grown man questioning his life choices, while Milo took a dignified step back to avoid involvement in the crime scene. Trying to recover my dignity, I cracked another egg, this time less dramatically. It landed in the pan correctly, giving me a dangerous amount of confidence. I cracked a second one, but the shell slipped from my fingers and plopped right into the yolk. Milo huffed loudly, sounding suspiciously like he was laughing at me. I grabbed a spoon to fish the shell out, but I bumped the spatula, which launched a small, insulting amount of egg onto the floor. Milo approached it, sniffed, then stepped back with the same disappointment my grandma had when I failed math in 7th grade. Before I could recover, the oil in the pan decided it was done being polite. It popped aggressively like it was trying to win a fight. Startled, I jerked backward into the fridge door, slamming it so loudly that Milo jumped like he'd been drafted into the army. The pan tilted, the egg slid into a tragic and unrecognizable shape, and a slow stream of smoke rose as if the universe itself was rating my performance. I grabbed the pan handle with full masculine determination, immediately forgot it was scorching hot, yelped like a chihuahua, and dropped it. Milo ran a panicked circle before staring at me like he was witnessing the downfall of a formerly promising man. Desperate to salvage breakfast, I wrapped a towel around the handle and lifted the pan again. The eggs, now looking like a philosophical metaphor about failure, slid rebelliously from side to side. I attempted a heroic flip, only to catapult half the mixture across the kitchen where it slapped a cabinet and began sliding down slowly in shame. Milo and I locked eyes in a shared moment of disbelief. The smell intensified into something that definitely wasn't food. The smoke alarm blinked as if preparing its lungs for an opera performance. We're praying to every deity available. I lunged toward the window to let the smoke escape, but the handle chose that exact moment to jam. I tugged once, twice, then yanked it open with the force of a man fighting for his life, startling several birds outside who now had beef with me. Milo barked at them as if lecturing them for witnessing my failure. I rushed back to the stove and turned off the heat. Gray smoke curled up in the air like it was embarrassed to be associated with me. I waved a dish towel violently, trying to prevent disaster, but fate had other plans. The alarm detonated with the volume of a stadium speaker, screaming my incompetence to the world. Milo howled along, making it sound like a duet of chaos. I ran around the kitchen, fanning the air like a confused medieval knight fighting an invisible dragon. The flashing red light judged me aggressively. After what felt like eternity, the smoke cleared enough for the alarm to calm down. Milo plopped himself dramatically in the center of the room, panting, staring at me with a mix of pity and admiration for my commitment to ruining breakfast. I looked at the smoldering pan containing what used to be eggs. The whole kitchen smelled like burnt hope and shattered potential. I sighed deeply, leaned on the counter with the weight of a man who has accepted defeat, and declared the attempt officially over. Milo walked over and placed his paw gently on my foot with the seriousness of a therapist. His silent support softened everything. The sunlight returned to the counter as if trying to comfort me, whispering that failure was sometimes just part of being human. Accepting defeat, I opened the fridge and reached for a yogurt, the breakfast of a man who tried and failed gloriously. Milo followed me to the table, sat down beside me, and rested his head on my knee. The silence was calm, warm, almost rewarding after the chaos. I took a deep breath, letting the stupidity of the morning settle into something strangely comforting. The failed meal had become a memory, a ridiculous story rather than a disaster. Milo licked my hand gently, almost proudly, like he was acknowledging my effort despite the outcome. As I ate, I realized that mornings like this probably happen to everyone. Grown adults pretending they have life under control until an egg proves otherwise. Not everything needs to be perfect. Sometimes life throws breakfast at the wall and waits to see if you can handle it. I looked at Milo, who wagged his tail slowly, and for a brief moment everything felt perfectly fine. The kitchen was a war zone. The pan was traumatized, and my ego was slightly bruised, but strangely, the day felt good. Chaos had turned into company. Now when people ask how my morning went, I give them the truth. I tried to cook, I almost summoned the fire department, and my dog witnessed the entire meltdown. And somehow it made the day better. Sometimes chaos is just the universe reminding you to slow down, smile, and breathe. If you want more comic-style stories like this, follow for the next one.